According to Taz, is with me. And Tash, we're doing things a little bit differently this week because I am on my cruise with Mark Stein. I'm really hoping that, like, the whole world hasn't burned down while I'm away, because that does usually happen.
Is the royal family facing yet another scandal? Reports are circulating that Meghan Markle may have flirted with Prince William, and that's not all. New allegations suggest a shocking manipulation of Princess Diana's legacy.
But what is really exciting is this gives us an opportunity to escape the news agenda and talk a little bit more about the issues that really matter to the outspoken audience. So this is our first AMA together. Ask Me Anything. I've had so many questions come in for you. So let's just get straight to it, right? First up, from Jfra127. Some of you have crazy YouTube usernames, by the way, but I'm going to use them. Jfra127. Who asks Tash, will the Sussex squad ever be exposed for their horrendous behaviour and their alleged connection to the Sussexes themselves? Do the Sussexes direct, fund or interact with members of the Sussex squad directly or through third parties like Christopher Boozy? Archewell funding of university think tanks on internet data and studies suggests that they have developed practices for amplifying messaging, manipulating algorithms. They are absolutely vile, and their ability to threaten to kill people on the internet yet never be held accountable begs the question, who protects them? Whoa, that's a big question, a really important question, though, to kick off with. Tash, where do you want to start with that?
Obviously, I've had my own personal run-ins with the Sussex squad and with Christopher Boozy, and I do believe there is a correlated link. I do believe that there is a correlated link. I do believe that there is definitely reason to believe that Harry and Meghan do support the Sussex squad one way or another, especially when you saw Christopher Boozy appearing on their Netflix show. This is a man that has targeted people that himself has behaved like a troll. I remember watching him go for lots of people, lots of different personalities, and he does it the same way the Sussex squad do. They seem to target one person at a time, and it's a coordinated effort. I think, like with anything with Harry and Meghan, something will always get uncovered. The truth will always prevail. And I think, obviously, with showing Christopher Boozy clearly having taken part with Netflix, that shows that they approved of him. And by having him on that show, his methods, and in doing so, that I think Harry and Meghan approve of the Sussex squad. I think it's definitely filtered down. So I do think that there are links already showing that Harry and Meghan do support their toxic fan base and the way that they target people.
What's really going on behind palace walls? Let's break it all down. And trust me, this gets intense. Let's start with the most explosive claim. Meghan Markle allegedly flirted with Prince William during her early days with the royal family.
Oh, absolutely. And I've written a big investigation into this, which is still available on my Substack, www.outspoken.live. And it is worth me saying, by the way, the best way that you can support me and what I'm trying to do with Outspoken is by signing up on that Substack. I give lots of content to you direct. You can sign up completely for free, www.outspoken.live, and you can read my Sussex squad investigation into there. But to sum up very briefly, Christopher Boozy has directly and publicly coordinated with many members of the Sussex squad, and the guy, I believe, is the head of the Sussex squad. He's also a total conspiracy theorist, and I don't use that term, actually, because I usually think conspiracy theories come true. So why don't I just say he's a total liar? Because, for example, when it came to this picture of Catherine, he was the one peddling the lie, Tash, for weeks and weeks and weeks, that there was some sort of Catherine double being used. And when you actually looked into what happened, that was lunacy. It's like there was a random guy who happened to see Catherine and William. He took the picture. He sold it to a news agency, which then sold it to The Sun. He gave an interview. Like, it would have been impossible to set that whole thing up. But Boozy continued to hammer the fact that it was all a setup. He's a star of Harry and Meghan's Netflix documentary, and still, Tash, they have never distanced themselves from him, just like they've never distanced themselves over the disgusting claims by Omid Scobie, including on the day that Catherine made that heartbreaking cancer announcement. Do you remember he was doing a TikTok countdown?
Again.
As if it was some sort of thing to look forward to. Like, they are despicable. They are the biggest gang of internet trolls in the world. What do you call them, Tash? Internet terrorists. I like that.
Yeah.
And Harry and Meghan have never once distanced themselves. And as Jay Fra points out, indeed, all of this work that they do with organizations like the Aspen Institute, I think is totally hypocritical. But also imagine what they've learned. It's almost like they use all of those negative tactics and then allow the Sussex Squad to employ them. So I'm not accusing anyone of any form of direct payments. I would love to know how Christopher Boozy is funded. I'd love to know that. But we haven't seen any direct correlation. But what we also haven't seen is Prince Harry and Meghan ever distance themselves from these terrible, terrible people. But okay, let's move on to the next question from Cool Terry 67. And this is a great one. He asks, if Tash had a sit-down interview with the gruesome twosome and nothing was off limits, where would she start and which direction would she take it in? I like that. And I wish that would happen, by the way.
The problem is with interviewing Harry and Meghan is they lie. They will lie to anyone about anything. They will change their story 1 minute to the next. So I would really struggle to know where to start with those two, because, you know, whatever answer they give wouldn't be the truth. It would be a version of the truth that's not the actual truth. But with them, I think I'd like to individually ask them about their first dates. How did they meet? Did Meghan actually wear his mother's perfume? But I mean, there's so many questions that you could ask those two. And I would never go into the questions about the pregnancy because I don't agree with it, because there are 2 children involved. But what could you honestly ask them? I'm throwing it back to you because I'd be bamboozled, because they lie about everything. You know that you wouldn't get an actual honest answer from either one of them now.
No, so exactly. I think what you would have to do is actually go to them with absolute specifics of their appalling behavior and really,
that would be,
you know, really get them to, you know, so Catherine said that in this month you were abusive to her staff at Kensington Palace. What happened? Why did you make this person cry in the office? Why were they really crying? Because in the book, Harry, you admit that your staff were in tears. Well, here's the person who I know was in tears. I know their name because I do. Why did you yell at them? Why did you abuse them so revoltingly on this day? You know, I would want to bring the receipts and actually see how they would deal with those situations. And I think you're right. That's the only way, because if you just allow them to talk in general terms, you get absolutely nothing from them.
According to royal insiders, her charm and subtle behaviour reportedly crossed a line at certain events. Body language experts have even dissected old footage, pointing out suggestive eye contact and proximity that some claim was more than just friendly.
But to say, if I could ask them anything and nothing was off the table, I think I'd want to ask Harry live on camera, how did you feel knowing that your grandfather was dying in hospital and you still went ahead and you actually, through sources, said that they were using your grandfather's health to muzzle your wife, to silence her? You know, there could be all of those questions. Those sort of questions. Put Harry on the spot. How did you feel when you found out that your grandmother had bone cancer and yet you still continue to do interviews trashing her? How did you feel when your wife, a few weeks before she died, she gave an interview to The Cut, threatening that she was still going to keep selling stories on the royal family?
Oh yeah, and the diaries, the diaries, Tash, you know, the tell-all book claim.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think the other thing that I would really want to ask them about was the racism claims, because
Yeah.
Tom Bradby and Oprah Winfrey were embarrassing. Like, Oprah was totally embarrassing because she thought she had this big international scoop. She's not a journalist, really, is she? She's an entertainer. She proved she's not a journalist. But Tom Bradby, who is meant to be one of this country's preeminent journalists, literally allowed Harry to get away with just rolling back all of the racism claims without any form of actual questioning about what happened, who said what to whom, why did you claim there was a racist within the royal family if you never really believed it? And actually, I would then want to call Harry out for his obvious racism. Why did you think it was okay to call your friend the P word? Why did you dress up as a Nazi? You know, there are a whole load. Why did you joke that a particular comedian didn't sound black? You know, there are a whole load of racism questions, I think, that I'd also want to go into. And the problem is, this is why they only get interviewed by their friends, you know, Anderson Cooper, Gayle King, Tom Bradby, Stephen Colbert.
They sign off, don't they? They sign off on the questions. You can tell with the answers. They've possibly given them, this is the list of questions that you are allowed to ask.
And you're never going to really challenge your friend on lies when you've got that access. Okay, let's move on to All's Good 4321, who asks, the King can request Parliament to remove those two embarrassments titles. This would then show the Commonwealth that he does not condone their disgusting and destructive behaviour. They're like two out-of-control children who have no consequences for their behaviour. I'm sure if Queen Elizabeth II were alive and well, it would have been off with their titles. What do you think, Tash?
I've thought about this one a lot. The thing is, Prince Harry will always be a prince, and I don't think that they would ever strip his princely title from him. So you take the dukedom, he'll refer back to Prince Harry, and Meghan can call herself Princess Henry, but obviously she won't. She'll call herself Princess Meghan. So I don't think it would solve anything. I also think that if the King did petition to the government to remove the titles, it will probably never get brought up. It would probably never get done. And it would then fuel Harry and Meghan's next victim narrative. They're doing it because they're trying to hurt the children. They're doing it to punish Harry and Meghan. They're punishing Harry and Meghan because they won't bring the children over. It will allow them to create another narrative. But I do think, rather than being that dramatic, I do think one thing that needs to be done immediately, and that is to get Prince Harry and Meghan off of the royal website. They still have them and their link to their Sussex Royal, which is basically what it is, isn't it? Their Sussex.com website. That is on the Working Royals website, and you still got the link to them. And I think with everything that they've done, everything that they continue to do, the scandals, the fake tours to Commonwealth countries, they need to come off, because it makes it look like that the King still supports his son and his daughter-in-law.
But was it really flirtation, or just Meghan being charismatic? This wouldn't be the first time Meghan has been linked to royal rifts. We all know about the deteriorating relationship between Harry and William. Could this alleged flirtation have added fuel to the fire?
That's really interesting, your framing of why maybe removing the titles is not as simple. Because I know there is that issue of her still being able to refer to herself as a princess. And of course, that's arguably even worse. However, I take the other position, which is that they have to do it. The titles have to be stripped. Remember, I first broke the story of Megxit, and even then, the titles was a hot button issue. But Harry and Meghan had accepted early on that the titles would have to go. I think it has been so shameless and a complete breach of the Sandringham Agreement, the way that even on a Netflix show where they are being paid tens of millions of dollars, they use the titles. That goes against not just the principle of the agreement, but the practicality of the agreement. So where I totally agree with you is it will not happen unless it is something that is driven by King Charles. We know King Charles is never going to drive it, especially not now battling cancer. He just wants the issue to go away. It's why with the Councillor of State, he didn't remove the position from Harry and Andrew. He just added a couple of others. But personally, I hope it happens. I think it needs to happen. I don't think Charles is necessarily aware of just how much damage Harry and Meghan are actually doing to the royal family. Because remember, this question is from a Commonwealth perspective, and I think they are doing so much damage around the Commonwealth because it belittles the royal family, it cheapens the royal family, it turns the royal family into like a circus, a Kardashian-style reality show. And remember, Tash, it's these Commonwealth countries, many of them, that over the next 2 decades will be considering independence. And so I think there just has to be a separation. Like after the abdication, the Duke of Windsor and Wallis Simpson, it was so clear that there was no connection to the royal family. It was like there may have been polite meetings, but So I think it needs to happen, but I don't think it will happen. Let's move on to Beach Girl 6790, who says, do you think the visa questions about Harry are important enough to be looked into, or does she think it's much to do about nothing? Does she think Harry and Meghan Markle's behaviour is hurting the monarchy, or is it helping them? Well, I guess we've answered the latter question. We both think it's hurting. But the visa question, is this much to do about nothing, or is there a genuine scandal potentially hidden there, as Niall Garner and the Heritage Foundation believe?
I think so. I think that I hope that the Heritage Foundation continue. I believe that it's wrong that other people, other famous people, have had their visa taken away from them when they have been caught even just talking about the fact, even admitting publicly that they have taken drugs, which Harry has done. So the fact that Harry is being treated completely differently to other people purely because he is a member of the royal family is very wrong. I think that he should be treated exactly the same as any other celebrity. And let's be honest, he's more celebrity than royal these days. And he should have his visa revoked from him. And then he has to start going through the proper channels, as did those other people that were eventually allowed back into the United States. It's very obvious that we do have a 1%. Elitists do get treated very differently. But the fact that this has become such public knowledge, it's obvious that Harry has clearly had exceptions made for him.
Some sources say William voiced concerns early on about Meghan's intentions. Concerns Harry didn't take lightly. Their brotherly bond began to crack, and today they barely speak. Coincidence or consequence?
And at the end of the day, he's King Charles's second son. It doesn't matter that he's, what is he now, 6th in line to the throne. That should not matter. This is to do with American visa rules. And if you admit that you have taken drugs, they have the right to not allow you entry. And if you have already had entry and then they find out that you have taken drugs, they have the right to revoke it, which they have done for other people. So I think that Harry being treated again like he is the 1%, isn't he? He's being treated like that, and he's not. He should be treated the same as everybody else. So I do really hope that Niall is successful with that. And I think the American public have every right to know if Harry is having taxpayers' money also used on him because of this very special visa that he seems to be on.
Okay, next question in our AMA from @MazzyB, who says, "Hi Dan, I watch your programs every day. Thank you, I really appreciate that. I would like to know if Harry may convince Meghan to educate the children in the UK when they are 11. This could then give Harry a reason to be around in the UK, maybe an unofficial separation whereby they remain married in name only. Then Meghan can have her title, Harry can have some life within the UK, and the children can make some friendships in the UK. I feel it may just be a matter of Harry waiting until the children are ready for big school at 11 or 12. Then he can make a soft breakup. What do you think, Tash?"
I don't think that Meghan will ever let those children come over to the UK.
Totally agree. Maybe totally agree with you.
When they turn 18 or 21. But she would have poisoned them so much by then. I believe that if Harry ever did attempt to leave her and it wasn't basically her decision, the first thing that she would do would be turning the children against their father with toxic manipulation. I think it would come down to the judge saying to the children, would you like to go live in England? And the children are going to say no, because Meghan would have fed them lots of lies, no doubt, about how evil the British public are, how nasty the royal family are. I mean, she probably already has fed those children so many lies, you know, to do with their family and the reason why they're special and, you know, they're above their peers. And I just think Harry doesn't have a hope in hell of ever getting those children into the UK. She has too much control over him. And then, of course, the children.
Yeah, I'd agree. Okay, this is a great question from Bia Pops KM6RQ, who says, just curious, what do you think was the biggest red flag William and Catherine saw when dealing with Meghan? Was it her behaviour towards her dad or her staff, Tash?
If my suspicions of when they started having red flags with Meghan is I believe that she would have tried to flirt with Prince William. I am convinced that she would have also tried to manipulate William with the same moves of morphing into Diana. Now, Prince William being that much older, he would have seen straight through that immediately. There are too many stories that have come out with Meghan, the fact that she's always been obsessed with Diana, and I believe that's how she manipulated Harry very early on. And it makes sense that she'd think that Prince William would be that easy to manipulate as well, whether it's slight touches, whether it's facial mannerisms, whether it's wearing the same perfume. She would have tried that on William and he would have seen straight through that. But when it comes for the final straw of Catherine and William, where they wanted, right, we've got to have a separation, I believe it was the way that Meghan was abusing the staff. Their staff, Maria, their nanny, was one of the people that Meghan reportedly shouted at and was rude to. And they would have seen it. She was rude to the Queen's chef, the Queen's gardeners. There is no one that Meghan didn't look down her nose at and was absolutely horrid too. So I believe that would have been the final decision with Catherine and William. But I think Prince William would have got red flags from her the moment that she tried to wrap her arms round him and give him a kiss on the cheek.
Whether these claims are fact or fiction, one thing is clear. The royal family remains a storm of secrets, loyalty and betrayal. What do you think? Was Meghan really out of line, or is this just another media witch hunt? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and remember, in the world of royalty, nothing is ever as it seems.